Hello, I'm Mayor Greg Mingarelli, and this is Prescott Today. Today we have a great panel of educational administrators here with us today, so look forward to a great conversation around our vibrant educational community here in Prescott. So let's start with some introductions. Let's start over here with Dr. Morris.
Well, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. I have been here for 7 days and in Prescott, and am just thrilled to be the incoming president at Prescott College. And Prescott College serves both undergraduate and graduate students. And we're proud to be a leader in experiential education and collaborative learning spaces. And we train our students to become problem solvers and change makers and community leaders, which we believe is just so important right now in these challenging times for society and the communities.
Well, welcome to Prescott. We're
Thank
so
you.
thrilled to have you here and
Yeah.
excited to get to know you more as we get into the school year.
Well, I am excited to be here, and I'll be even more excited when I'm not living out of boxes.
That's
Welcome
fair.
to Prescott. Dr. Carter? Mr. Carter?
So, Mr. Mayor, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to be here.
Nice to be with everybody this afternoon. So I have been in the K-12 environment for 46 years. I taught and coached and was a school administrator for 30. The last 24 of that was in Prescott Unified, all at Prescott High School. And the last 12 of that, I was the principal at Prescott High School. And we were talking earlier, when I retired in 2003, that was the 100th graduating class at PHS. From there, I became the county school superintendent. I've been elected 5 times. I'm in my 16th year, and we work with 25 school districts, of which Prescott is one, of course, and then 24 charter schools on 102 campuses. And it keeps me busy.
Well, very good. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service to our county. Let's move over to Joe Howard, and as a part of your introduction, please let the viewers know where we are today.
Oh, we are in the Prescott Unified School District office in the old Washington School, which Mayor Mingarelli helped us to move over here when he was the board president. But it's a great building, and we listened to our community who said, do not get rid of that school. We have preschool downstairs, and so we get to hear kids playing every day while we're doing the business of the district here. So we're glad to host today. And like you said, I'm Joe Howard. I'm the superintendent of the Prescott schools. I'm on my 27th year as an educator, started as a teacher and a coach, and then came back to Prescott from Chino Valley. My family came here in '85, so I was a student, and I'm an alumni, and came back to be the principal at Mile High Middle School, where I was once a student, and then worked in the district office for 12 years now. It's my 7th year as the superintendent, and I'm honored to be a part of this school district. Prescott Unified has about 3,600 kids right now. We'll see in the fall where that lands. Every year you're not quite sure where that's going to land, but we're confident and excited about the coming year. Our motto is every child, every day, and we'll get later into the amount of schools that we have and that type of thing, but we're honored to be here for our 150th year just was completed, and we're starting another 150.
Great to have you, Joe. I remember our first meeting at Mile High, fond memories of
Yep.
those times when the kids were going to Mile High Middle School. And
Absolutely.
we've had 5 of our children of our 9 graduate from Prescott High. So
Yes.
thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Annette.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for having me here, Greg. So I'm Annette Carlson. I'm the Chancellor for Embry-Riddle here in Prescott. And I've been here in 2 years, and I did finally get through my boxes. It took a while. You always have more things than you think. It seems like they're multiplying when you move. I don't know how that works, but anyway. So, so my background is, well, I'm originally from Sweden. That's where my funny accent is from. I've been in the United States since somewhere in the mid-90s, I think, but spent most of my time on the East Coast, and most recently in Cleveland, Ohio. Educational-wise, I have a degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering. Worked at different universities, and now took on this leadership role at Embry-Riddle. It's a great university, and it's a great place to live. So I'm so delighted to have been here now, pretty much exactly 2 years, on the day almost. So.
Well, welcome. Thanks for being here today. You've been a busy lady in those 2 years, and we'll get more into that as we get into the show. Dr. Lisa Ryan couldn't be here from Yavapai College today. She had a prior engagement, but Yavapai College is a very important part of our vibrant educational community here in Prescott. So let's get started with some questions and dive in. We'll start with questions and see where we go with the show here, but we'll start with Mr. Carter. You mentioned the number of schools, district, charter, private, a lot to keep track of. But in addition, homeschoolers, do you know how many are homeschooled in Prescott? And then talk a little bit about the pandemic as well, and just kind of the impacts you were seeing across the county during the pandemic.
Well, our office does indeed register homeschoolers. There's a statute in Arizona that says that if a parent is going to homeschool their child between the ages of 6 and 18, which actually can be extended to 21 if they're a special ed student, that they have to, within 30 days of that, register with our office. So as of this morning, we had 2,811 students registered. Now, I will tell you right now, we don't believe that we're any place close to that number of students who are actually being homeschooled. And the reason for that is that once they come in and fill out that documentation, what's called an intent to homeschool, they never have to do that again. The statute then says that if they're going to end homeschooling for any reason, whether they're going to go back to a school or whether they move someplace else or graduate or whatever it might be, they would need to let us know that. And unfortunately, we rarely get withdrawals from homeschool. So we purge the roll when the child's birthday would be their 22nd year. So our best guess is that number is probably someplace closer to 1,000. We have several homeschooling networks in the community, and of course we have even more throughout the county. But that is a kind of a moving number because we never really know for sure exactly what that number is.
Yep, very good. The pandemic, any thoughts?
Well,
We have a limited amount of time, I'm sorry.
I understand. So,
Plenty of thoughts.
you know, I said this is my 46th year. I've never dealt with anything like this. I hope I never have to deal with anything quite like this before. Now, it's interesting that we've had several other pandemics. This was not the first pandemic that schools have dealt with, but none have been any place close to having the kinds of characteristics and controversy that this one had. So going back to the end of the 20 school year, everybody was hoping that it was going to be short-lived and that we were going to have modifications in place and mitigation strategies, and we'd have a vaccine and it would all be gone. Well, of course, last school year started and it wasn't all gone. The numbers were still going up, and of course they went up through March. And it was one of those things that was very, very controversial. And this is the best example of how controversial it was. And I'm not going to name the district for you, but there was a district whose board spent a great amount of time dealing with that issue of looking at the mask issue and the whole mitigation strategy piece, whether we keep students in class with face-to-face instruction or whether we send them home and try to do it remotely. And in March, they had a vote on one of those items, and the vote was 3-2. And the very next day, we had a group of parents who came in who wanted to recall the 3 board members who voted in the affirmative to do whatever it was they did. And that wasn't really surprising. But the next day, a different group of parents came in and wanted to recall the 2. That is just the epitome of what we've been dealing with. I mean, you just can't make everybody happy. There is no middle ground that everybody will agree to. In fact, a lot of people don't want middle ground at all. And the fact that our schools have done as well as they have and that are in the position they are in now to move forward is a pretty optimistic thing over the last 18 months.
Right. Yeah, it was a difficult time. There were no easy decisions, and I know administrators were really put in the spotlight. Joe and I were talking every once in a while about some of the decisions, because I had similar decisions to make that many of the administrators were having to make as well. it was a very difficult time. And I do remember the surprise of thinking, you know, in March with this coming, that I was thinking, well, surely we'll have 4th of July activities. I mean, you know, by then it'll all be over with. And we learned something new in the pandemic. But I appreciate your leadership, the leadership of all of our administrators during the pandemic. Very difficult. I know that it was an emotional hot button for a lot of people. And, you know, in this case of a board being fully possibly recalled, that was the epitome of the kind of decisions we were seeing, with really kind of a even split on either side of any issue. Joe, let's get a little better understanding of how many schools are in the district here, and maybe your numbers for you know, this fall that you're thinking you might see.
Yeah. It's a big question as to how many kiddos are going to show up in the fall, and I'll speak to that for a second here. Every school district in Arizona and across the nation lost lots of kids during the pandemic and weren't able to know where they went or whether they were coming back or that type of thing. Prescott was in that boat also, but we actually did better in comparison than a lot of districts. Mm-hmm. What's interesting that happened in PUSD is that we got 650 new students over the last year that we had never seen before. So you don't know until the school year starts. I mean, we have enrollment and that type of thing, but some of them come in late. And so if
650, Joe, would be 20% of what your total enrollment.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
Yeah, so if all the kids come back from the pandemic and those 650 kids are still here, we're going to have some space issues.
Yeah.
Which
you haven't seen that in a while.
Right, and you'll never hear me complain about that. That's a good problem to have. But in general, what PUSD looks like is we have 7 schools. We have Discovery Gardens Preschool, which is right behind us here in Washington School. We also, each of those schools, each elementary school also has a satellite pre-K. And that's gone very well for us in terms of getting kids started a year early in the school, in their neighborhood that they're going to be in. So we have 3 elementary schools, Lincoln, Abaya, Judd, and Taylor Hicks. Those are K4. And then we have a Granite Mountain School, which is a 5-6, Mile High Middle School, which is a grade 7-8, and then of course Prescott High School is a traditional 9-12 high school. So, and then this year, for many years we've had what's called a dropout prevention program, which is very rare in Arizona in a unified school district like ours, and there were some pluses and minuses to that. We're moving to applying for an AOI, an Arizona Online, and that'll be K-12. And we just hired a director for that, Rachel Chungalo, and so we're sort of building a school this year, an online school. So we're very excited about that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Dr. Carlson, give our viewers an idea of the size of Embry-Riddle and maybe kind of the growth curve you guys have been on for the last few years.
Yeah, so a little bit like we just heard from Joe, it's always hard to know exactly how many students we will be, but it looks like we'll be about 3,100 students in the fall. So that would be up about 100 students from last year. We've consistently grown over the last, 12, 15 years. I think in 2012 we were about 1,500 students, so we've grown a lot. And I think that speaks to a combination of Prescott being such a great place to live and also the terrific work faculty and staff are doing in engaging the students.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, very good.
yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Morris, you want to give us some insight in this regard?
Yeah, so we have about 1,000 students. We have both, as I said earlier, graduate and undergraduate programs. Mm-hmm. And a number of our programs are online. We have growth in our graduate programs and a lot of our online programs. Our residential campus is relatively small. We have a small footprint, but we're excited to welcome the students back August 24th. But they come in early. They'll start coming in early August because we have orientation where they go out into the field and for a couple of weeks, and I'm excited to see what that's like and to meet the students.
Very good, thank you. You know, we were talking about the pandemic a little bit and the difficulty. This question I'm going to kind of spin a little bit more positive. There's a lot of innovation happening during the pandemic. We had to figure out how to do things differently to accommodate the restrictions that we were under with COVID. So give us maybe one or two things that were innovations during the pandemic, things that you had to do. And I know a lot of this was on the fly, you know, working night and day literally to figure out solutions. But are there some innovations or solutions that happened during the pandemic that really made you think outside the box that are hopefully something that you might use into the future that are going to benefit your institutions? We'll start with Joe.
Well, probably 5 or 7 years before the pandemic, we started seeing issues with social emotional needs for our students and mental health needs like never before. And I was hearing it from principals that, you know, they needed support. I mean, you know, it was hard to get a day started when you had a kid who was having a meltdown in the office for certain reasons, and you had to take care of that. And we didn't really have resources in place. So 5 or 7 years ago, I started hearing all kinds of other school districts talking about this. We realized it's a nationwide issue. And oh boy, did the pandemic blow that up and magnify that, especially when we didn't have kids in our buildings and they were home, their parents were working. And I mean, that was a tough place for kids to be in, tough place for parents to be in. And so I feel like PUSD was ahead of that curve. We'd already put $500,000 into staffing for social emotional counselors. But, you know, we heard a lot from parents on how we could help better. And so one thing that we did in PUSD this year is we added a social emotional director, because, you know, it was one of those things like, well, who's handling this and who's, you know, we had a few counselors, but we didn't have anyone who lived and breathed that every day and thought big picture all the time. We were all doing that a little bit, but now we're bringing that together. And a big piece of that is going to be parent support. And so we did some of that during the pandemic. We started picking up on that. We did weekly YouTube videos for different grade levels, but also for parents to sit down and talk with their kids with, and also for teachers to show in class and talk about those things. And so that's actually the person that we hired to be the director. Her name's Jessie Stickle. She was a counselor at the high school. She's incredible. And so she's going to roll that more out to parents, and she's going to be able to really pull together those all of the staff that are focused on this, so that we have a much stronger plan. And there's great examples all across the nation, but I do feel like PUSD is going to be a leader in that because of how many resources we put into that. So that was one of the bigger, there's lots of takeaways technology-wise and things like that. And of course, many, many stories of people who came together to support us. Our own foundation, which you've been a part of, the PUSD Education Foundation, paid $30,000 for hotspots.
Wow.
And so there's a big technology piece to make sure everyone had everything they needed at home. And so we learned a lot. Hopefully we don't have to do any of that ever again, where we're sending things home. We're gonna keep it in our schools, if at all possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Joe.
you bet.
Annette.
Yeah, so I could actually more or less say very similar thing about mental health. We have also started utilizing for initial consultations and online service. But since we talked about that, I'll bring up something else. And that is, a good thing is that in higher education, we always been worried the last 10 years about, well, we residential schools are going to be replaced by online formats, right? The students want to work from home. They don't. They hate online learning. So the good thing for us is that we really learn how the students appreciate the face-to-face and these human interactions that we have. You can't beat that. And but we also learn how to be flexible. That we can turn on a dime and be prepared to just face the unknown. The challenge we had, as been brought up here, is there were no manual for how to deal with the pandemic. In particular, like Tim said, that we thought it would be over in 6-8 weeks, and when we realized it was not. So this thing of getting together and planning for something that's unknown and just be flexible. I think the new generation of students graduating from any level now really understand the idea of be flexible but have a plan, but be flexible.
I think we all learned that. I appreciate what you had to say about online. I think we know that the human interaction, relational connection
Yeah.
with younger students is absolutely important.
Yeah.
But you're testifying here that it's really important even at college level.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
good. Thank you. Barbara?
Well, I think overall that what higher education in general has learned is that we might not always have to meet in person, that Zoom, we can actually have interactions with our colleagues, across the world easier through Zoom, and we've all gotten much more comfortable at using that format. We've also, some of the digital transformation, not using paper as much, is that, we can actually do this electronically.
Right.
So saving costs of the trees and the cost of that has, I think, been revolutionized, across higher education. And certainly Prescott, because we do a lot of outdoor learning and field-based, I think at the outset, we have 2 field schools, one in the Sea of Cortez in Mexico and one in Kenya run by the Maasai. So at the very outset, that was very difficult, obviously, for travel. But our students, faculty, and staff are incredibly innovative, and I think they rode through the pandemic and really were creative in how they used field-based learning. Again, I think the digital transformation is really key.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Tim, what were you seeing around the county?
Well, first of all, I agree with all of my colleagues. I mean, all of those points are very well taken. I think the biggest issue that we dealt with that was consistent from campus to campus was the use of technology. We had some really good pieces. Actually, we have 2 organizations that our school districts have supported for years. One is the Yavapai County Education Technology Consortium, which really deals with bulk purchasing, it deals with policy, it deals with things that allow schools to work more effectively with each other using technology. And then we have a funding source, the Forestry Management Association, which takes secure rural school dollars and allows us to leverage those. And the schools think enough of that program that they collect those dollars and then give half to this organization that can use to benefit the whole. And of course, technology has been a huge part of that over the last 3 to 5 years. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, I think a great majority of our schools, if not all of them, felt confident with the technology they had in their building. But what people don't realize, you can have the technology, but there's so many other aspects to it. For example, the one thing that we hadn't done a good job of was to train our teachers how to use that. Now, of course, they know how to use it to word process and to do grades and take attendance, but to use it to provide instruction is a whole different issue. And it's even more compounded if I'm trying to use it to provide instruction to an audience, a classroom, that is absent. There's nobody in the room but me and my camera. And then we hadn't talked at all about how do we help parents help kids. And that was a piece that we just had. I mean, sometimes we'd have homework clubs and that kind of thing, but not with technology. And then the whole piece about how do you integrate that from campus to campus, and how do you monitor that, and how do you look at the assessment of grades maybe differently to accommodate some of those things. So I mean, there were just so many. It came in waves, and we just continued to learn, and I'm sure we will, but we are very much ahead of where we were in those days, and I certainly agree with Joe. We hope we don't have to go back to that, but we better be prepared. And then that was the other big thing. What happens when you go completely home instruction, and then they come back, and then you have to go back to home instruction again? I mean, it's just, it was, we'd never dealt with those issues before.
Yeah. Standing up the virtual classroom was just a monumental task. And I know you guys worked really hard to get that going, but I think it was evident with my kids at home, the need for the human interaction. I mean, it was what we had, and we did the best with what we could do, but my kids, some who have some more special needs or need that kind of help, not being with that nurturing teacher in the classroom was very difficult. So yeah, let's hope that we don't have to go back. I'm going to keep the spotlight on you here, Tim, and anyone can jump in on this, but the question is just for the fall, what are the state's current requirements with COVID-19? What are we looking at? And I know we're sort of in this malleable space right now because we're seeing numbers go up, and it could change. But what are we facing right now for this fall?
Well, I think it is important to keep in mind that it could, and likely to some degree will change. The easy answer is there is not one single thing right now that the state is requiring K-12 schools to do. There's not a gubernatorial order out there that we have to follow, and we had 5 of them at one time that we were having to follow. Those are all terminated, they're gone. The state legislature eliminated the power that governing board had to determine whether they were going to have a mask mandate. They can no longer require it, they can allow it, they can encourage it, they can provide masks, but they can't require them to be used. School districts really never had the authority to require vaccinations, but I mean, literally there is not a single requirement right now that school districts must do that's a statutory requirement. So what we're falling back upon is the CDC requirements, what the state and the county has provided, and I have to tell you, those people have been awesome to work with. I mean, we have had just outstanding partnerships with those groups. The bigger issue is what's going to happen if those numbers continue to climb, and if mitigation strategies don't resolve the issues on an ongoing basis. What's going to happen when we have to start sending kids home? What's going to happen when governing boards have no choice but to say we're going to have to close school and then add those days back at the end of the year? Because they still have that authority, even though no governing board wants to do that if we can keep from it. So from the standpoint of statute, there really are no requirements. But we'll see where we go.
Yeah. Well, in the coming days and weeks, we're going to be having school get started. You're going to be the first one to do that, and then our institutions of higher learning will soon follow. So what's it going to look like? Joe, we'll start with you. What's it going to look like this fall?
Well, I'll talk about it from a health and safety standpoint first. It just really piggybacks on what Tim was saying, but and I don't think Prescott Unified was very different than most schools in the state or even country in terms of like when we watched local metrics and county metrics, and we made decisions based on that. Those were the tools that we had, and so that we would close our entire school districts. So what we're learning and what we've put in place over the summer, we had a health and safety committee that looked at how we could do this differently, and I think a lot of people have learned this and are going to go this route. But you know, if we have to close schools down or quarantine kids, let's do it in that classroom first.
Yeah.
And see if we can get it to stop there.
Got it.
But if it spreads, then maybe we have to do that school. But that doesn't mean that we have to close down Prescott High School. And of course now vaccine rates we don't know those, but we have some ideas. But our high school kiddos have the opportunity to be vaccinated. So from 12 and up have the opportunity to be vaccinated. So it's a little bit different game for our 12 and under in terms of how we work with those kiddos. But so from that health and safety standpoint, that's how we think things will look different. And again, we're hopeful that we don't get in that position, but we're prepared that if we are. The other piece too is, we all learned how to quarantine last year. So we had our high school principal whose arms are about 6 feet wide, and he'd go in every classroom and spend the whole day tracing a kid's path to find out. And believe me, it's not fun telling a family that their kid has to go home for 10 or 12 days. So we learned a lot with that quarantine piece in terms of, and CDC's changed some of those rules too, and vaccines help a lot, and people can wear masks. They don't have to wear masks, but we're also looking at a system where we're working on this right now, but a color code system that's maybe more general than the metrics, to where, and each school would be wherever they're at, but let's say there's a green and a yellow and a red, and then that would help families go, okay, we're in yellow, so we're gonna wear masks, our family's going to wear masks or that type of thing. If we're in green, don't worry about it, that kind of thing. So we're trying to help people. We're trying to communicate better and more generally with that. So I think we have a lot of opportunity to look at very much more local metrics,
Yep.
classroom and schools,
Good.
and I think that'll help.
Friday night football, other sports?
Hey,
Yes.
we did them all last year. I mean, in one fashion or another.
Right.
Wrestlers wearing masks was not my favorite thing, but it did create some new moves. But no, we've got a full football season lined up, and we're so excited about that. And Greg, when you were president here, one of the last things that you helped us do was get that beautiful field put in up there. So we want to put a huge crowd up there, and we did it for graduation. It was beautiful. It was traditional, and so as of now, we're headed for normal as much as possible, and we definitely know how to shift gears when we have to shift gears.
Friday Night Lights in Prescott is a staple, very important, so it's good to hear.
Nothing like it.
Yeah. Annette?
I like Joe's idea of the color code, so to communicate where we are. But well, to answer your question about what it will look like, I'll just have to recap where we were last year. So we actually, during last academic year, we were about 80% face-to-face or mask-to-mask, as we called it. So we were able to, by having, we spent the whole summer, the staff did a fabulous job just rearranging furniture in the classrooms so we could keep the 6 feet distancing but still be face-to-face. But this year what we are hoping at least is that we will be able to go back to the full everything face-to-face. The labs will be as normal. And see what happened when we had these lower density classrooms where that faculty got a higher burden on teaching because sometimes they had to have extra sessions. So more or less we're planning to be back to normal, sports to normal. We are phasing in like the planetarium. We hope to be able to invite the public again. We're just holding on that a little bit, but we hope for a normal school year with the caveat, Tim pointed out, that we don't know what's going to happen with this Delta variant that's happening now, but yeah, be flexible.
Very good. Thank you, Annette. Barbara?
Well, we expect fully normal. We do require our students that are residential to be vaccinated. There are some exceptions to that. If a student or staff is not vaccinated, then we do require them to wear masks. A lot of our teaching is outdoors and in the field and different places in Arizona. We go up to the Grand Canyon. We utilize the space a lot. So we expect, again, kind of fully functional, and it was really pretty similar last year, except it was the mask to mask. Everybody was wearing masks, but we're excited again for the semester to begin, and two are a bit worried as we go into this new virus, the Delta virus, and we have meetings set up, so we're starting those risk management and health and safety was always key.
Very good. Thank you. Well, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in our schools here this fall and some of the vision that they each have for the future. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. I'm Mayor Greg Mingarelli. You're watching Prescott Today. We're talking to our educators here in the Prescott and County, and we have such a vibrant educational community here in Prescott. Very proud to have our educators with us today talking about what we're going to see here in the coming school year. So let's start with Dr. Carlson. What are some of the new things that are happening out at Embry-Riddle?
Wow, yeah, how much time do we have? So there are a lot of good things happening. So as I mentioned earlier, we've grown a lot, and one thing that's driving the growth is our flight program. Right now there is a shortage of pilots, and that's predicted to be a shortage over the next 10, 15 years. So with the growth of the demand for pilots, we have seeing growth in enrollment, and that means that we have more need for equipment. So we're getting more new airplanes. We will actually, with the help of the airport now, have 2 spots on the airport to keep our airplanes. So you'll see an increase in the number of beautiful white and blue airplanes flying here. We also have officially we started baseball last year, but we didn't get going with that. So this semester we'll have, end of the semester we'll have the inaugural game for baseball. So that's very exciting. We also have a new college. What we did was to merge a couple of departments and created a new college. No programs are changing, but I think having this new college, we'll get some synergy. And so the new college, it's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's called the College of Business, Security, and Intelligence. So by having that type of education, we think that will be really useful for the modern industry. Like I think we all have gotten a lesson in supply chain management over the last year. So how do you create a secure supply chain, both making sure you have the products coming in and also so no one hacks into it. So that would be one example of what the students are studying in this degree. So we're starting to search for a new dean there. There are a lot of fun things, and we really hope to be able to welcome back the community to our planetarium, and we love to see everybody on campus. So we are. One more thing I do have to mention, that is we are planning for a new student union. Will take probably 2 years to finish that, but that will also be one of these spots that we feel the community will feel welcome to come and have maybe coffee or lunch or something like that.
Very good. Yeah, thanks for the update. Dr. Morris?
Yeah, well, we're excited to be moving into the old APS building and facilities, and we've got classroom space, faculty offices, and that's where our outdoor education and equipment is all stored. And we're also going to have student parking in the parking lot that's adjacent there. So we're excited about that and just expanding those programs. And we have some, again, like Emory Riddle, we have new programs that are coming to fruition, and we're really going to start doing some strategic planning as I'm learning the college and the area, and hope to see some partnerships grow.
Yeah, very good. You know, speaking of partnerships, Prescott College has always been a great partner with the city. We have a new Hilton Garden Inn and new park area. The splash pad was a huge hit this summer. I don't think we realized what kind of demand there would be for that, and I think we've had 400 to 500 kids out there at a time in one day go through the splash pad. But anyway, Prescott College has been a great partner. The Sam Hill Warehouse, which had been owned by Prescott College, is now going to become a conference center, and we really appreciate your partnerships over there at Prescott College to get those kinds of projects done. So, and I'm sure we'll be partnering in the future.
I'm sure we will. Look forward to it.
Well, Tim, anything new out your way at the Yavapai County Educational Service Agency?
Well, there is, and we're pretty excited about it. I'm assuming that everybody has heard the term the final mile. The final mile is getting broadband from our schools and places of use into the homes, because the other thing that we became very obvious to us is that the broadband capacity was simply not what it needed to be to support instruction, but we also learned that it isn't what it needs to be to support economic development either. So with all of the federal funds that are coming into the area dealing with broadband, as we are working very collaborative with every agency that's willing to work with us to develop a strategy where we can get 100 megs up and down into every home and every business in every platted community in Yavapai County. I mean, that's the goal. That's a pretty big goal, but we think with the partners that we have and with the funding that's available, we think we might be able to do that. And of course, it's not just going to be our agency. It's going to take lots of people. But we're certainly moving forward with that. Stan Galagaski, who's our executive director, is working on that, and so is our E-rate folks. So hopefully we'll be able to continue to keep people in the loop on that, and we'll just continue to make progress.
Yeah, so important, Tim, to have that access, you know, for students outside the classroom for homework or whatever that enrichment might be. Never mind the fact when you're in a pandemic, as Joe mentioned, you had to come up with hotspots for students that didn't have access. So such an important project. Thanks for your work on that. Where are we at here, Joe?
Yeah, couple things, so you might have to cut me off. I'm excited. Kind of a different topic, but Councilman Tenney is also our new HR director, and he just did a study on retention. And I think a lot of people know that there's a teacher retention crisis in the country, and Arizona particularly struggles with that. And we also have in PUSD, but in the last few years we've gained on that a lot. This year we had a 15% turnover rate, and it's the lowest retention rate that it's the highest retention rate that we've had in recorded history. And so we're really excited to be keeping those teachers. It's just such a head start on getting your school year started when you have experienced people who know and understand our systems and our expectations. And so that's to us one of the biggest signs of success we could have. So we're really excited about that. You probably know, Greg, about the Community Nature Center, which Prescott Unified started many years ago. Henry Dahlberg started that many years ago. And then when Mr. Carter was part of PUSD, I believe it was sold to the city. But it's still right next to our campus. And while in the last year, that partnership between the city and the school district, our kids were going through out there all day long, and you know, outdoor classrooms were at a premium. Chris Hosking came over and cut trails between Abaya Judd and Granite Mountain. They're beautiful trails. They're open to the public when school is not in session. And it's just a great partnership. We are finding hundreds of ways to run curriculum through there, obviously from Granite Mountain School and Abaya Judd School, so we're really excited about that. Two more quick ones. I mentioned it's a building year for a K-12 online program. We had a program that catered mostly to dropout students. This still will do that, but pushes it all the way down to K. And it's got a bunch of flexibility in it. We know we've got lots of students who have taken that choice and left the district, but now they can be online and play football or be in the band or be a cheerleader. And so, and also it's not all or nothing. It's not an all day only option. You could pick away at a class or two here that you needed to, or graduate faster or that type of thing. So it just gives us a ton of flexibility. And a lot of districts in Arizona have this Arizona Online piece, and they do it in many, many different ways, but we're very excited to do it in our way with all we've learned in the last few years. So that's going to be a neat one. And then lastly is a more general one, something that I think all school districts work on, but we've been working on for many years since we were Advanced Ed accredited, which is now Cognia. And it's been our focus, we call it student agency or student ownership. And again, something that in the last year became a necessity, but we didn't have the support for the kids that we want. But it's teaching kids and helping kids to take into accountability their own achievement with coaching of teachers at a young age and all the way through to where, you know, kids are really in touch with, you know, where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And then you know, what we've heard from experts over the years is, you know, you have 25, 30 kids in a class, you know, those teachers can differentiate for those kids. But if you have the kids telling you, I need this, I need work on my writing skills, then we can do a lot better when the kids are a part of that. So that's, you'll see most school districts moving towards that with personalized learning, or there's lots of differentiation. But we're calling it student agency or student ownership, but that's a big focus for us this year.
Yeah, that's so important, Joe. You know, you're overseeing over 3,000 students, but yet personalizing it and customizing it to the student, that's a tremendous job you're doing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for them to be a part of that customization and knowing their needs is really, I think, advanced teaching and learning.
Yeah, very good. Mr. Carter, can you talk about the Milestones project I've heard about, and our viewers probably don't know much of anything about that, so.
I would be happy to. So the Milestones project is alive and well. It is an inward-facing project not an outward-facing project. So the community probably doesn't know a great deal about it, but our educators, law enforcement, courts, mental health, the medical providers certainly know a great deal about it. So if you'll remember back to April 20th of 1999 and the Columbine shooting, at that point, Judge Robert Brutinel was our presiding judge and challenged a very small group of people in the community at that point to figure out what was unique about that and how could we prevent that from happening in Yavapai County in Prescott. Well, that's the same Robert Brutinel who is now the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court. So that's just kind of the way he looked at the world, and we're very glad that he did. So from that, the Milestones Project was created, and one of the things that we learned as we started looking at that is those two young men who did that had been identified by 14 different local, county, and state agencies. But none of those 14 entities were sharing information with each other. So nobody was leveraging resources to work with those families and work with those kids to hopefully resolve some of that, again, going back to mental health issues, and to prevent that type of thing from happening. But that's exactly what the Milestones Project is designed to do. We have lots and lots of community partners. We have a process by which a school, a law enforcement, medical provider, whoever it might be, if they identify certain types of behaviors, and certainly if we're seeing from those kind of behaviors from more than one agency, that there are resources that can be brought to bear and to have dramatically positive influences on that family and what that child will do or doesn't do. So it's not something that a lot of people in the community know about, but it has certainly been very effective over the last 21 years at keeping our schools safe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that something might not happen, but we certainly are in a much better position than a lot of places who aren't looking at those kind of things and who don't have the wonderful partnerships that we have here.
Yeah, one of the many great collaborations that we have in Yavapai County and why this place is so special is because of the partnerships and the information sharing, the communication that takes place. I see this from the seat I sit in at the city, again, regarding safety of our citizens and the collaborations we have with the county and with DPS and with the National Guard, with Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, et cetera. Speaking of great partnerships, Joe and maybe Tim, you can chime in on this with the Mountain Institute, a great partnership that really serves a lot of different students. But tell our viewers a little bit about the Mountain Institute.
Yeah, it's a school district of its own, enacted by the voters 15 years ago, something
yes.
like. And it's excellent. It's something that our community can and should be super proud of. And so we work with Chino Valley, Humboldt, Ash Fork, Seligman, Baghdad, Mayer. Did I get them all?
Chino Valley.
Chino Valley and Prescott Unified. And so, so we can have satellite programs on our campuses. So for example, at Prescott High, we have automotive technologies, business management, computer networks, digital communications, film and TV, advanced modern manufacturing and automation. Those are on our campus. Kids can come from other campuses to those programs. And then also they have different programs, like in Chino, there's an ag program that's excellent, of course, and so some of our kids go out for that. And then there's the central campus that the CTED has, that has a whole different set of programs like auto collision repair, auto repair tech, aviation tech, certified nursing, construction tech, culinary, electrical line worker, welding, pre-engineering, medical assisting, I can go on. So all these opportunities, and these are all based on programs that we know kids will get jobs in. So most of these programs, the kids will graduate with a certificate.
Yeah.
Most of these programs, they'll graduate with many community college hours under their belt. But any of our kids can be part of this program. And we just had a major victory in the legislature this year that we've been asking for a long time, is that instead of only being funded for 3 years, we're now funded for 4. So the problem we had before was when we lined our freshmen up and said, so you can do all these programs, but you can't start CTED till next year. They'd jump in band and stay in band or another program for the 4 years. Now I think we're really going to see this thing be even more successful and affect more kids. But it's neat to talk about career versus college. There's great opportunities in both, and I think this gives all of our kids in the area lots of options for success. So Tim could probably talk about it for many more hours.
Well, let me add a couple of things, but he did a great job. So many of your viewers probably remember the days when those kinds of programs were called vocational education. Well, the types of jobs that students are taking today are certainly different than they were back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. There's 136 program offerings that ADE has approved. So the CTEDs around the state can pick any of those 136 that meet the needs of their community. What kind of employment do they need? What kind of services do those employers need? And it's designed where it's a business partnership with the Career and Technical Education District, which is what that CTE stands for. You know, the voters back in those days gave approval of that with 74% of the vote. And over time, they have tremendously seen their tax dollars leveraged in a very positive way. So we're very appreciative of that. But of course, our local districts work closely with them. And of course, it works closely with business as well, because it's a partnership of all of those agencies. So,
Yeah, it's excellent pathway for some students. You know, college isn't necessarily for everyone, and to give these students the opportunity to have a certificate and maybe graduate from high school and move right into a technical career of some sort is a great opportunity for our students. Well, we're going to get ready to wrap up here. I want to give everybody the opportunity just for kind of a final word to our viewers. Could be anything that you want to share with our viewers, but from your perspectives in our educational institutions, one last shot to just share a message to our viewers. We'll start with Annette.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the Prescott community. We feel very welcome here. When I moved here 2 years ago, and you know, you're out and about and getting to know and chatting with people, everybody's just gave me such good feedback how they loved our students, and I just want to thank everybody for being so welcoming and embracing our students who come from all over the country and the world.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Morris?
Well, in my 7 days here, I have been just really grateful of how welcoming everyone is and kind. And so I really do look forward to partnering and getting to know the community, and I'm excited to do so.
Well, we are known as everybody's hometown, so this is now your hometown after 7 days.
After
so
7 days, it
welcome.
feels like that,
Yeah.
so that's great.
Well, very
and
good.
I'm very happy to be back in the Southwest where I'm from.
Yeah, very good. Mr. Carter?
well, I want to thank everybody that's part of the panel, and obviously the mayor for hosting. I think the strength of education in Yavapai County and in Prescott is right here. I mean, the collaboration that the different agencies have, even though they're all separate and distinct, and we're doing our own thing, but we're doing it in partnership with others. And the fact that we have a mayor who can be as comfortable as you are having a conversation with people in an area that you don't work in every day is pretty amazing. So thank you for hosting. I appreciate that.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate your work in the county. Mr. Howard?
Along those same lines, just grateful to be a part of a community like Prescott. Our schools are special, I think, and it's because of our community. And it goes beyond the academics and the extracurriculars that we're doing. These are your schools. These are our community schools. These are your buildings. We had blood drive over here yesterday. We're doing hail damage dent repair over at the bus barn right now. We have great partnerships with the city, and we have festivals downtown on our fields, and we're opening up our auditoriums to more and more things. And I just want to remind the community that these are your buildings, and we like them full, with kids on the weekdays and with the whole community on evenings and weekends. And so just want to thank Prescott for being everybody's hometown, and come join us in these buildings. With churches, whatever, we've got churches on the weekends, and so they're available for our community.
Well, Joe, you've been a great collaborator in the city and in the Prescott area. And what you just said is so true. I've seen it so many times
Yeah.
where we're trading resources. You've used buses when we had a catastrophe on
Yeah.
a mountain biking
Yeah.
event.
Yeah. Sure did.
But we've traded around so many different things when we needed help and you needed help, and appreciate the collaboration. And you know, our schools are the strength of our community. You know, many times people will tell me about what's going on around the country, and I'll say, well, maybe that's true there.
Yeah.
But Prescott's special.
Yep.
And we have special people in our schools that do tremendous work, our teachers and staff, and you do a great job leading that group. So thank you for your
Yeah.
leadership.
Well, we also invite the public to come and walk through with me or a principal and see it in action. But same thing, when I've been to your campus, every time I'm amazed at what we're offering K-16 and beyond. So it's a pretty neat collaboration.
Well, thank you all for being here and participating. This has been Prescott Today. I'm Mayor Greg Mingarelli, and we'll see you next time.